Yes, I'll be moderating today in English because my Spanish is más o menos. But it's really a privilege to join you today to discuss the critical role of youth leadership and intergenerational collaboration in restoring and preserving our ocean. The ocean is both the lifeblood and the lifeline of our planet, producing half of the oxygen we breathe and serving as the largest carbon sink. Yet it is under constant threat. From ocean acidification to plastic pollution, addressing such challenges demands the creativity, urgency, and innovative thinking that young leaders bring. At Sustainable Ocean Alliance, we champion the idea that young people are not just the leaders of tomorrow, they are essential change makers today. SOA provides the funding, mentorship, and resources needed to turn bold ideas into tangible solutions for the challenges facing our ocean. With a global network of over 7,000 young ocean leaders across 186 countries, we believe that all youth from diverse backgrounds and communities should have a seat at the table in these policy and blue economy fora. The perspectives of youth from coastal, indigenous, and historically marginalized communities are particularly critical as they often are most affected by ocean degradation. Inclusive representation leads to stronger, more comprehensive solutions that reflect the needs and realities of all stakeholders. We continue to strive for that at SOA every day. And we believe that youth voices are essential for advancing sustainable solutions in the blue economy and shaping inclusive, forward-thinking ocean governance. Some examples: in Gazi Bay, Kenya, young ocean leader Hosat Nigu started Mikoko Pamoja, one of the world's first community-led blue carbon offset initiatives to plant new mangroves. This resulted in an offset of 2,000 tons worth of CO2. In Pasir Ris, Singapore, young ocean leader Isaac installed 221 lines of mussels around fishing farms to stop algae blooms caused by pollution. He is also working to develop a bioplastic from seaweed. In Kingston, Jamaica, with the Jamaica Climate Change Youth Council, young ocean leader M.A. Christie created a podcast and social media series on marine ecology to educate Caribbean students and youth on relevant ocean and climate topics such as deep-sea mining. These are examples of the amazing community-led work that our youth leaders are doing around the globe. And now, I'm excited that you will get to hear directly from two exceptional leaders who are lighting the way for ocean restoration and inspiring us all to take action. First, it's my pleasure to introduce Olivia Mandle Navarro, a remarkable 17-year-old activist, environmental advocate, and author who is already making waves in the fight for animal rights and ocean conservation. At just 12 years old, Olivia invented the Jelly Cleaner, a tool designed to remove microplastics from the sea. Her impactful petition, No es país para delfines, is leading the charge to close dolphin parks in Spain. And at 15, Olivia authored the climate change book, Si es cosa tuya, Yes, It Is Up to You, which became a top-ranked resource for youth published by Penguin Random House. Olivia is also a TV presenter, a 2-times TEDx speaker, and a National Geographic Spain storyteller. Her accolades include being named a UN food hero and one of WOW, Women of the World's Top Young Leaders. As well, Olivia serves as an ambassador for the European Climate Pact, B Corporation, and the Paul Watson Foundation, and she's a member of the Prince Albert II of Monaco Foundation's Regeneration Future Leaders Program. Olivia's dedication to environmental advocacy and her ability to inspire the next generation of changemakers truly sets her apart. Please welcome to the stage Olivia Mandle Navarro.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jessica, for the presentation, and it's an honor to be with you and Nacho here today, and thank you, Sun and Blue, for inviting me. I'm really grateful to be with you all. So I want all of you now to listen closely and take a deep breath. What do you hear? The gentle rush of waves, the songs of whales. Now, listen again as these sounds begin to fade. replaced by a haunting silence. A silence where once there was life, replaced by the steady hum of pollution, the roar of extraction, the quiet of ecosystems disappearing. Our oceans can't speak for themselves, and yet they're telling us something urgent. The United Nations defines sustainability as meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. It's a straightforward idea. It's not just good ethics, it's good corporate strategy. If we consume everything today, what will we have left to sell tomorrow? So if the concept is so clear, why is sustainability still such a big issue? We've had 29 years of international COP meetings, half a dozen of Earth Days, and thousands upon thousands of protests across the globe. But we're still not moving fast enough. Why are we still struggling to make a meaningful progress? And why do we continue on a path that our planet and our business cannot sustain? I'm a very optimistic person. I'm full of hope. And I believe that most of us don't wake up every morning and say, let's harm the environment. It just happens. The choices we make speak for us. Our homes, our work, our transport, what we buy and consume. However, the reality is that most people do not do anything in their daily lives to help the environment or to make a difference. And on top of that, most companies also do nothing to stop harming the planet or to improve it or to be more sustainable. Or at best, they do very little. We need to understand the planet's needs as our own and listen. Listen to nature's voice, to its pulse, and prioritize the decisions we actually need, often placing growth in the center when we should be placing the planet there instead. So this is how my journey to activism began. I heard our planet crying out for help, and I felt that I had to answer its call. In the summer of 2019, after a visit to New York, an art exhibition on climate change moved me profoundly and lit the spark of change. I was aware of the problem of plastics and microplastics drowning our oceans, but up until that moment, I didn't realize completely that this problem could lead to the death of our oceans. So, returning to Barcelona, inspired by my heroes, Sylvia Earle, Jane Goodall, and Sir David Attenborough, I decided I wanted to be one of those people who fight for the health of our planet and all the living beings that inhabit it. So at just 12 years old, I created the jelly cleaner, this utensil you see here on the screen. It's made from recycled materials that everyone has at home, and it cleans microplastics from the surface of the sea. I'm now advancing the Jelly Cleaner project into a tool that will empower a citizen science and educational network that will mobilize people to clean our seas and our shorelines while raising awareness and educating communities about ocean conservation. So with the spark of activism burning bright, in early 2020, I decided to launch my first campaign asking the Barcelona City Council and the zoo to transfer the 3 dolphins that were still in the zoo to a marine sanctuary. In just a few months, my campaign received over 55,000 signatures, but these dolphins were not transferred to a marine sanctuary like I asked, but to another zoo in Athens, in Greece. Disappointed, obviously, but undeterred, I decided to keep researching on the issue of captivity, not only in my city, but across the country. And when I realized that Spain is the largest prison of dolphins and cetaceans in Europe and the 6th in the world, I decided to launch my current campaign, No es país para delfines, asking the Spanish government for a scheduled closure of all dolphin parks in Spain. This petition currently has almost 160,000 signatures, which I presented last year to the Spanish Congress in Madrid and to Brussels as well. So, over the past few years, I've dedicated myself to raising awareness through my book, my TV show, and through speeches, conferences, and at schools and with business leaders, because I think that only through education and information can we create a chain of consciousness that's going to be strong enough to change our current situation. But sadly, we are not there yet. We are far from it. We're in the middle of an existential crisis. This is why we're suffering the devastating effects of a climate emergency. We're witnessing extreme weather patterns never seen before. Droughts, heat waves, floods, extreme winters, rising sea levels, the loss of biodiversity and ecosystems, the sixth mass extinction. Last year was the hottest year on record, above 1.18 degrees Celsius above the average. And through the first 10 months of 2024, we're on track to be the first year above the 1.5 degrees Celsius tipping point. The storms that caused devastating flooding earlier this month in Valencia or in Malaga just a few weeks ago should not be seen as an anomaly, but rather as the new normal. These storms will only increase in intensity and in frequency across Spain and Europe as the Mediterranean continues to get warmer. And this is where we need to take a hard look at what we mean when we say environmental leadership, because Spain claims to be at the forefront of environmental transition, but the reality of our ocean management tells us a completely different story. Because how can we aim to lead in sustainable practices when we're still holding the title of European leader in marine mammals in captivity? How can we claim to protect our coastlines when the very foundation of our tourism industry is putting them under such intense pressure? I visited the Canary Islands, and I saw this contradiction firsthand, because the island is an incredible natural treasure, but it is also facing severe threats. Plastic pollution lines the coastline, a visual reminder of our disregard for our oceans. Tourism there is massive and invasive. Construction is spreading across the entire island, while in open sea, marine life suffers from noise pollution and contamination from boats, as tourists flock to interact with sea animals without regard for their well-being. These issues, pollution, exploitation, overcrowding, are not unique to the Canary Islands. These are the same challenges that coastal communities across Spain and Europe are facing, and they threaten the very essence of what makes these places so special. In its 2023 Sustainable Travel Report, Booking.com stated that 76% of global travelers say that they want to travel more sustainably, while in a similar study indicated that 81% of travelers were willing to spend more on travel if it meant a reduced impact on the environment. So being sustainable isn't just good for the planet, it's good for you and your businesses. And by working together, we can protect these places while also welcoming people who want to explore them. Because sustainable tourism isn't just the responsibility of the tourists, it's a shared commitment. And to meet this challenge, we must encourage more collaboration between governments, businesses, and tourists. And obviously, it has to be backed by strong environmental policies. And we also need more voices, more youth voices, to speak for our oceans and demand a change. Because while ocean conservancy through sustainable tourism is a critical part of the solution, Spain must also deliver on its commitment for the 30 by 30 agreement, this global movement that designates the 30% of the world's ocean as marine protected areas by 2030. And it is necessary, but it is also ambitious. Because Spain, in theory and on paper, says it's 2/3 of its way to achieving this goal and is already there in the Mediterranean area. However, the key here is on paper, because only 1% of NPAs in Spain are strictly protected, and the majority do not have an approved action plan to actually manage these areas or to conserve their flora and fauna. So they're basically just paper parks. Just imagine, 3 out of every 4 fishing boats that practice bottom trawling in Spain do so in an MPA. The problem, however, is that bottom trawling in some MPAs in Spain is legal. So the problem is as much as with the fishermen as with the government's policy of protection. Just imagine an MPA where bottom trawling is permitted. For me, it's completely mind-boggling. So Planet Earth is communicating in a language of distress, signaling its discontent with our stewardship. But now, we are at a turning point. Humanity must decide if it wants to keep waging war on nature or if they want to enter a new relationship based on respect and dignity. Now, wouldn't that be something? So how do we achieve a greater level of sustainable living? The problem is that even if most people would want to live a more sustainable lifestyle, they lack the education, the information, and the products and services that will enable them to live a more sustainable life. Because sustainability is not just a political issue. It's a human issue. It's a survival issue. And we cannot depend on government slowly to act. The private sector must lead this transformation. Businesses must use their platforms, infrastructures, and products to become forces for good. They must lead by example. They must innovate, create changes that impact our daily lives, and leave greenwashing aside. It's for everyone's sake. And you are today's and tomorrow's leaders. You can and must be agents of change and lead the transformation, because the future of the planet depends on you and on us, the new generations who are fighting for our present and our future. Because the decisions we make now will determine the future that is going to await us. And I regularly speak with young people across campuses and at conferences, and what I see in the generation and in my younger brother's generation's eyes is a genuine concern for the future. And it's understandable, because in the face of a climate emergency, it's normal to feel apprehensive or nervous or scared, because what will happen if we fail to make the decisions and the choices necessary to combat this climate emergency? But I tell them, it's okay to be scared, but because fear is a human emotion that reminds us we have something worth fighting for. But what is not okay is to stand still in the face of this fear. We cannot close our eyes or turn our head away from the situation, because our silence and inaction makes us complicit in the destruction of our planet. So let's move forward, not with fear, but with a determination to implement changes step by step. Because when we do, we're not just serving the planet, we're serving ourselves and the generations to come. Each of us has the power to implement a change, no matter your age, your background, where you come, or what sector you work in. You have a role to play. We have a moral obligation to ourselves and to future generations to create a more sustainable existence, because today's decisions have long-lasting effects on the generations of tomorrow. And activism, it's not a title, it's an action. And it begins with the simple choices all of us make in our daily lives. It starts with the internal leadership in your company, taking initiatives that affect the entire value chain, because each step is a pillar towards the future we all want. Because the urgency for action has never been greater. The stakes have never been higher. This is not just a crossroads, it's a call for unity, for our fight for our own survival. And if we choose to act, not individually, but collectively, if we choose to shoulder this responsibility together, we can forge a path to a future that's not just brighter, healthier, more equitable, more sustainable, and a future where no one is left behind. That is the promise we must commit to, and that is the world we can build and must build together. Because today we have the opportunity to be the voice of the ocean, of the planet, to amplify their call and to ensure that their voices never fade into silence. Because that is my hope for the future, and that is my hope in you. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. That was a really, really powerful speech, and I think we all have some food for thought to take with us today. So now it's my pleasure to introduce next Nacho Dean, a naturalist, professional explorer, and environmental advocate who has achieved extraordinary feats to raise awareness about the planet's challenges. Nacho is the first and only person in history to walk around the world and swim across 5 continents, an incredible journey documented in his books Libre y Salvaje and La Llamada del Océano. His inspiring work has been featured by leading media outlets like CNN, National Geographic, and El País, and he's delivered over 150 talks through prestigious platforms such as the United Nations and TEDx. He's also a recipient of numerous awards, including the El Eco Award for Environmental Activism and the Adventure of the Year Award. Nacho recently completed Blue Spain, the first oceanographic campaign sailing around Spain, supported by the Ministry of Ecological Transition. And today, Nacho continues to inspire action for environmental preservation, sharing his experiences and lessons from his groundbreaking expeditions. Please welcome Nacho Dean.
Nacho Dean se podría convertir en el primer español en dar la vuelta al mundo a pie.
Nacho Dean, quien es un aventurero ecológico.
Desde marzo de 2013 se ha dedicado a recorrer el mundo a pie.
Ignacio, welcome to Yerevan.
Thank you very much.
¿Por qué decidiste hacer este proyecto?
Es un sueño personal, es mi canto a la vida y a la libertad, creo que es un milagro estar vivos. Quería lanzar un mensaje de conservación de la naturaleza y del planeta Tierra. Tenemos que cuidar el planeta y el hogar, la casa en la que vivimos. 33.000 kilómetros, 31 países, 4 continentes, 11 pares de zapatillas, muchas historias que contar y sano y salvo y feliz.
Hay quien sueña con dar la vuelta al mundo y hay quien quiere cruzarlo a nado.
El aventurero Nacho Dean quería alertar a todos sobre la conservación de los océanos. Esto es un superhombre.
Nacho Dean ha atravesado 5 estrechos en los mares más remotos y apasionantes del planeta.
6 horas y media nadando entre tiburones.
Es un agua oscura, densa, ves pasar ballenas. No ves nada.
Estás como en la oscuridad total.
He visto cómo el nivel del mar está subiendo en Alaska. Lo he visto con mis ojos, no me lo ha contado nadie.
Las consecuencias de la actividad humana son palpables. Vivimos en un planeta donde más del 70% de la superficie está cubierta por agua. Sin embargo, los mares son el gran olvidado. El planeta Tierra, el planeta agua, es el hogar en el que todos vivimos. Está en nuestras manos cuidarlo.
Mi nombre es Nacho Dean, soy naturalista, aventurero profesional, divulgador.
Lo verdaderamente importante es el propósito por el que emprendo mis expediciones, que es la conservación del planeta.
Nacho Dean.
Well, thank you very much, Sonnenburg Congress, for having me. And it's a pleasure sharing the stage with Jessica and Olivia, sharing also not only the stage, but the mission that we have for a healthier planet and environment. I don't want to take too much time. The first thing is how the idea came to my mind. I love being in the open air. I love being in the nature. I did several trekkings in the North Pole, Camino de Santiago, the Transpirenaica. I was in the Sahara Desert. But I always come back home. And one day I said, why? Why I have to come back home? Why not dreaming big? Why not leave everything, start walking, heading to the east, and don't return back home until I have walked all around the world with a purpose, a very clear purpose, is to send a message of ocean and environmental conservation. So this is the map with itinerary that I followed during my expedition. 21st of March 2013, I start in the kilometer 0, Puerta del Sol, heading east. I have to say that walking around the world is a very romantic project, but first day I didn't reach too far. The first night I sleep between Pinto and Valdemoro. So step by step, slowly, I leave back Spain and we cross through France, Italy, Slovenia, Croatia, Serbia, Bulgaria, Turkey, Georgia, Armenia, Iran, India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Australia, Chile, Perú, Bolivia, Ecuador, Panama, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, Mexico, United States of America, Portugal, and 3 years later, and 12 pair of shoes are absolutely done, I returned to the same point by the west after walking through 4 continents, 31 countries and 33,000 kilometers on foot to raise awareness for the environment. But we live on a planet, when I watch the map, I see that more than 70% of the surface is covered by water. I had walked around the world, but I had a pending debt with the ocean. So, dreaming big, once again, I said, why not connecting by swimming what I've done on foot? So, I jumped in the swimming pool. I realized that I was not a swimmer. The first day, I just swam four lanes, almost 100 meters. I don't know if any of you are swimmers, you like swimming, but I say, oh my God, what I'm doing. I say I'm going to connect the 5 continents by swimming, and it's hard for me to connect the four lanes of the swimming pool. So after 2 years and more than 2,500 kilometers, I became a fish. I started swimming in rivers, in lakes, in the open water, in the sea. I remember I was swimming in the Cantabric coast in January and February. Of course, there was no one in the beach, but there was no one in the street. So there was only one guy swimming against the waves with the cold waters, the streams, because I know if you train in the hardest conditions, you will be ready for the day of the challenge. So, 26th of June, we crossed the Gibraltar Strait between Spain and Morocco, connecting Africa and Europe. Then I swam from the last Greek island, connecting Europe to Asia. Then we swam in the Bering Strait from Alaska to Russia, connecting America and Asia. Then I swam in the Bismarck Sea from Papua to Papua New Guinea. It's a very hard strait with sharks and very little jellyfish and also saltwater crocodiles. So it was not a very easy swimming traverse. And the last one was the Red Sea, from Egypt to Jordan, connecting Africa to Asia. I have written 2 books. The first one, Libre y Salvaje, about my walk around the world. Second one, La llamada del océano, The Call of the Ocean. And I will have the pleasure to sign some books that are in the hall of the auditorium. But through these expeditions, I realized the 3 main threats, and they are part of the climate change. The first one is the global warming, how the temperatures are rising. I've been living with Inuits, with Eskimo culture in Alaska, and I've seen with my own eyes how there are invasive species coming from warmer waters, and the local species are running away looking for colder waters. In fact, their houses, the houses of the Eskimo people, they are building far and far from the coast because of the rise of the level sea. They project that in the present century, Greenland will lose more ice than in the last 12,000 years. Another thing is the biodiversity loss. And the third one is the plastic pollution. I've gone through countries like India, the Southwest, Thailand, Malaysia. There is no need to go so far. Here in Europe, we have a lot of plastic and microplastic pollution. So, as you know, we live in the age of plastic. There are 5 main years in the oceans, in the Pacific North, Pacific South, in the Atlantic, South and North, and also in the Indic. So I decided to bring all that knowledge that I acquired through my international expedition to a local environment. So I decided to launch a new scientific and oceanographic campaign called La España Azul from September of 2022 to June of 2023. And I have to say, we are proud that Olivia Mandle was one of the ocean heroes of this expedition who joined us on our boat. So this is the itinerary. As I said, we started in Basque Country in September. We ended in Catalonia in June. In every community, we took samples with a boat, 3 different parts, the mouth of rivers, cities by the coast, and pristine areas, natural parks, and protected marine areas. So we have a wide range of the most polluted places and those ones that are supposed to be the healthiest one. This is the boat. So we use a manta net. This is a device like this one. And there is a very rigorous protocol. You have to take the manta net like 2 or 3 meters far away from the boat so you don't avoid the course of the boat. The manta net goes a little bit sink. At the end of the manta net, we collect all those microplastics. There is a flow meter in the mouth of the manta net, so you know the density of the samples and the amount of water that has gone through the mouth of the device. And this is, I want to share with you, this is one single sample in the mouth of the Ebro River. One single sample, you have to pay attention how many amount of microplastics we found. But they are very little, so we don't realize. But when you see them through the microscope, you realize that all the ecosystem is full of microplastic, and not only the ecosystem, but also our bodies. There are scientific research that they show that we have microplastics in the blood and also in the muscles. So we have launched 2 reports. The first one is the microplastics. We will present this one in an European event in San Sebastian in January. And I want to share, you can find them in internet. I want to share with you some of these conclusions that we have found. There are 2 different kinds of microplastics. One of them, they are made that way, like the pellets. And the other one are the microplastics that they are broken. They are the result of the broken plastics, bigger plastics. Here we found more than 3,000 microplastics all along the coast, and more than 90% in the Mediterranean coast are plastic, more than 90% of the samples. Then we analyzed also with X-rays, because when you see the microplastic, you see we could say the material, the physical part, but you don't know the chemical, all the polypropylene and all the polyethylene, all the chemical things that they have, and also affect the ecosystems. We want to go one step further. So this is the results, where 70% are polyethylene and 60% polypropylene. And what's polyethylene and what's polypropylene? Polyethylene, there are some devices, some things, objects like plastic bags, the rings of the cans, toys, bottles, wraps, film wraps, and what's made of polypropylene? This is like also wraps, suitcases, electrodomestics, bottles. So every time that we see those microplastics, we know what's the origin of those microplastics. There are solutions, of course. We don't want to put focus only in the problem. That's supported by data. This is science. This is not an ideology, or it's not an opinion. It's something that we want to put on the table and start working on that. So there are a lot of solutions. And we also made many samples. We took samples of macroplastics on the beach. Like what's marine litter? We did 26 clean beach and also scientific report. And we took a lot of different objects. I want to share with you the list with the top 10 objects that we found. Number 1, cigarette butts. So I'm pretty sure that all of you, when you go to the beach and some beaches by the city, this is one of the objects that we find the most. Cap rings, ropes, swabs. And I asked to myself, how a swab end in the beach? How is it possible? I never see anyone cleaning her ears in the beach. So we throw the rubbish into the dustbin. It goes to the river, and the river goes to the sea. So it's not only about the cities by the coast, but also the inner cities that we have a responsibility. Of course, there are also a lot of solutions, but life goes on, adventure goes on, and we are planning a new scientific expedition, a new oceanographic campaign that is called Portugal Azul. So from March 2025 to June of 2025, we will sail all along the Portuguese coast from Oporto to Figueira da Foz, Aveiro, Mondego River, Islas Berlengas, the mouth of the Tajo River, Lisbon. We will sail all the way through Madeira, Azores Island, sail back to mainland, and we will end in Algarve, in the south, in the Formosa River. And we want to elaborate the same map, the first map in history about plastic pollution in our coast. And the goal to end this decade is to make a scientific expedition all around the world with a boat to invite scientists, biologists, people from the universities, and to make that combination between exploration, science, and communication, to send back to society all the things that we are living and learning through these expeditions. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Nacho. I think all of us probably want to join you on that next expedition.
Yeah.
It's really exciting to see all the projects coming ahead. So Nacho and Olivia, I'm so glad that we get to sit down together to discuss your work. And I thought we would start off with discussing storytelling, since storytelling is such a big part of both of your advocacy work.
Yeah.
So I wonder, how do you approach it, and why are stories so powerful for inspiring action on ocean conservation?
So I think when I communicate, and communication is a huge part of my work, I basically do it through storytelling, explaining my actions and what I've done, because I think people are more inspired when they see action and not only talking, you know? I think all of us need to lead by example, and when I communicate through storytelling, I do it for communities, the scientific community, as Nacho said, then the volunteering community as well, with beach cleanups and everything, then the educational community, that is also a huge part of, I think, of activism, educating about what's happening in the world through, obviously, storytelling, because stories I think are really powerful. And then the last community is the public and private sector. That's why I'm here today with all of you. And I think if people who maybe are not that aware of what's happening in the world hear a story and hear someone explaining what they've done, and they've seen a problem and they've thought about the problem, and then they've tried to find a solution, I think that inspires more than if we just say, oh, the problems are this, and this. So, and that I think is what is happening all around the world, especially in, for example, the COP meetings or a lot of congresses. People talk a lot, but there's little action, and I think especially young people are worried and are mad about this fact. So I think, storytelling is really powerful, and we should all use it to invite other people to join our actions and to act as well.
Wonderful. How about you, Nacho?
Yeah, that's true. I think there are many different ways to approach to nature. We have maybe a first one could be a very romantic or poetic way, just to admire the beauty of nature. Then you can also approach to nature from the scientific research, also just put data on the table. Also from the common sense, that if you had 100 trees and you cut 10 trees every day, in 10 days you have no trees, so there is not much science evidence about that. But I think that we are a species that we call ourselves Homo sapiens, but sometimes we also act from passion, not only from intelligence or from a scientific point of view. I think society is also passional. So when you send a message from a positive and a hopeful point of view, it's easy to call into action. So I think there are many different ways you can call into action from different perspectives, as the cinema, the music, the arts. I love sports, I love adventure, and I think that's a great platform to send that message. So I don't want to put the focus on me. I'm just like a messenger. The real, we could say the main character here is the ocean, is the environment. So I love inviting people to the boat or making beach cleaning, or when you give a talk, invite them just to be part of a mission. We have a mission. We are on a mission that is not to save the planet, because planet has been here for thousands and thousands of years. We just arrived in the last second of the last day of the year, we could say. And we need nature, but nature doesn't need us. That's what we have to make the click. There is one sentence that I love a lot. It's from Saint-Exupéry. He's the author of the Principito, the Little Prince. And he said, if you want to build a boat, don't start cutting the wood, distributing the work, managing the time. The first thing you have to do is to evoke in the minds and the hearts of people the willing for the wide and free ocean. So I think we're just from the storytelling and the myths and the stories, we have the power to call into action much better than sometimes from data and statistics.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're emotional beings, and storytelling has existed for all of time. And
we are storytellers since the beginning of the humanity. We tell stories around the fire. Yeah, that's the oral ability. Yeah,
absolutely. Wonderful. So we're here across generations, and I'd love to get into the topic of how important intergenerational collaboration is. We know that we need to collaborate across generations, from the youngest generation, that's even after you, to baby boomers and
I consider myself young.
Yeah, same. As a millennial, I'm like, oh, now there's 2 more generations after me. This is scary, yeah. But generations are getting shorter and shorter, and we can still learn from each other. So I'd love to know, how can we make sure that young and experienced leaders are working well together for coastal resilience?
Okay. I think global action is needed. I think only in society, in a country, all the authorities, companies, businesses, and citizens, we have to act all together. Also, from a global point of view, all the countries have to act in align with a purpose. I've seen it in the Mediterranean area. It's one of the most polluted seas by plastics. If only one country acts, is not very powerful and useful activity. So we have to act all together as a community. Also, that intergenerational, we could say, collaboration is needed, because people who have more years and more experience can share it with the young people who came with full of power, full of energy, different perspective and different angles, and the world goes on. Things evolve and change. So sometimes you can solve a problem with the same mentality that create that. So new perspectives and new things are welcome. So I think that intergenerational collaboration is needed.
Yeah, I completely agree with Nacho. I think the past generations have left us, the new generations, a completely destroyed planet. And now it is up to us to try to fix it in some way. And I think, this intergenerational support is needed, because I think young people are tired that there is a lot of talking, no action, and there's no real commitments, I think young voices should go with the governments, the politicians, should unite with all the sectors and sit down and decide what actions are needed right now, because we're running out of time. And I'm a really optimistic person, and I really believe in hope. Actually, my last chapter of my book is hope, but the truth is we're running out of time, and we need urgent action right now. So if we choose, all of us, to unite and fight for our planet, I think we're going to make it, because I think we need transparency. And obviously greenwashing is not part of that transparency. That's why young voices need to be included in the discussions of the older voices, the governments, businesses, etc.
Absolutely.
I know sometimes when we see young people, it's like, what they have to tell us, that they are very young. They are like 12, 15, 18 years. Yeah. And of course, there are sometimes you don't trust too much in the evidence or the things that they could say. And so I think we should find a balance sometimes between that energy of changing and inconformism.
And they can bring new perspectives as well.
Yeah. That's what I say, that sometimes we see those new, we could say, like information coming, that we should find a balance.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we've been discussing a lot the importance of multi-stakeholder, multi-sector work. And we're here today surrounded by policymakers and industry leaders. So I'd love to leave with a call to action from you both. What is one action that you think would make a big difference that the industry leaders and policymakers today could implement to protect our oceans?
I think I would ask them to listen to science. They are the ones who know the facts, and they are the ones who know what we need to do. And I think I would also ask that they would listen to nature, they would listen to our oceans, and realize how much they give us. Because people, and I see it around me, people don't realize that the oceans, without them, we could not survive. And that is why we need to protect them. So I would say listen to science, listen to nature, listen to oceans. And because before I thought that little actions were enough to change. If we all did them, it was enough. But now, seeing that we have almost no time left, I think we need big actions, and we need to jump on the same boat, all of us, because if we don't save our home, what's going to be of humanity, you know? So I think we need to invest in education. Companies need to invest in education of their employees, and also governments need to invest in education, educating young people since they're 2 years old, so the new generations come aware of what is happening, and they can also contribute, and they can be the ones who raise awareness to the people around them.
Big, bold action. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, for me, there are 4 main key pillars or key points. One of them is education, that, as Olivia said, education in the schools, everywhere, in universities, in companies, congresses like this one, in the mass media. Also, this is a very relevant issue that should open the news in the TV or the newspaper. So just to, if you look into another point, things don't stop. They keep on happening. So we should look at the problem and face it. Another very important key pillar is also law, legislation, is the power that authorities have to create a sustainable society. Another one, very important, is for companies and businesses, is innovation and creativity and technology. How you can build new process about products and services just to change business as usual. We have an opportunity right now. And it's not against being about being wealthy or against gaining money. You can be sustainable and at the same time being a very profitable company. And the last one for me is the finance, sustainable finance. It's not supporting or funding projects only because of the economic benefit, but also those startups and projects and companies that make a positive impact in society, in the planet, and the people. So those 4 key pillars for me are essential. Well, I encourage all people being here right now to spend more time also in nature. Nature is a master. Just a single walk in the woods, or just sailing, or looking at the sunset, or you charge your batteries. Yeah? So there is something in nature that is very good for us. So spending time is like being to the doctor. And you go to nature, you come back full of plenty of energy, not only from the physical point of view, but your mental and your spirit. So I think that we should change also a short-term vision for a long-term vision. We only focus in the next step. It reminds me when I walk around the world, you are focused on this step, but you have your vision, your mind in the point you want to reach. We can't exploit the resources if there is no tomorrow, as if they were endless. The resources are limited. So we must change that short-term for a long-term vision.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
A longevity perspective.
Yeah.
Wonderful. A lot of great ideas. So we have time for questions from the audience. If anyone would like to ask Nacho and Olivia any questions, we have people with mics. I encourage you, this is the time to do so.
Just very quickly, I was actually moderating the session before, and it's very inspiring to have you here today, so thanks a lot for your great work. And I think you are opening a space for others to come and to walk the talk, because I think we have a lot of commitments by political leaders in particular, also business leaders, but very few is happening on the feet for a lot of reasons. So I don't think we have to blame a specific person or specific sector. But I think what you are doing, trying to do, is to support others to come and to help to implement change. So I think this is a necessary step. This is not enough, and I hope a lot of people here in the room, but also outside of the room, because I believe those that are attending this kind of event are already somehow committed, at least in theory. But I think we have to somehow to partner, and my role is we do a think and do tank, so we work a lot on policies, so I'm happy that you mentioned the role of policies, because this is not only about individual behaviors, this is about collective commitments. And also to be very clear, and you mentioned transparency, greenwashing, accountability. And also we know there is a lot of money being invested, but most of it is going into brown or black economies, and very few in the blue and green economy. This is something that has to change. And I think this is about inspiring, but then to make sure and to keep pressure on the policymakers, political leaders, not the future ones, the ones that are taking now decisions, because we don't have time to wait for the new generations to come and to to change the world. That's too late. We have to do it now. But thanks a lot for your great work. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Definitely.
Thanks so much for your comments. Yeah, really appreciate that. And please feel free to come and talk to us after, too. The more, the whole point of these conveniences is for us to collaborate. I see another question in front and another one in the back. If get to, great.
Hola, Olivia. Hola, Nacho. No, my question is regarding what is happening today. Today in Santander is the first trial or lawsuit facing this new law, European law of greenwashing, anti-greenwashing. And this is happening between two energy companies, so Iberdrola against Repsol. And I was just reading the news today, and I was surprised because it should be an opportunity to change the way people is addressing sustainability. They're normally, big companies are using sustainability as a way to make more money and to create a kind of different atmosphere or state of mind. But the thing is that I don't know what's your opinion regarding you as spokesperson on sustainability or influencer. Have you been approached by many companies to use your image and storytelling, as you were mentioning before? I'm sure of it. So how can you decide in a world that is so difficult to know what is real or not real, so true or not true? And the second question regarding the same topic is this trial, it's only about advertising, okay? It's only about not being able to claim what they are claiming. So it has no penalty of what they have done, okay? So I don't know if you are informed of this, but at least to mention something about the greenwashing law that is coming from Europe. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, from my point of view, I do expeditions and I support them with sponsorships, with companies from the private sectors. But for me, it's very important that they are aligned with my purpose. So, of course, I receive proposals, and I also look for them for funding, like the next expedition, Portugal Azul. For me, it's very important not just for the greenwashing, but to be aligned in the DNA that they sense, the values and the culture of the company, just to really believe in what they say and you see what they do. Anyway, I know that we came from an old model, and transformation takes time. So you don't change from one day to another one. And I really appreciate those steps, even when sometimes they are not as fast or as big as you would like. But I really appreciate those steps that they make for a more sustainable way of doing things. Of course, you can criticize them. Maybe you don't agree. But there is always things to improve. But it's a very slow transition. Maybe we should rush. Nature has their own mechanism, and if you don't respect them, we start to have another kind of problems, like we saw the Dana, or health, or economy problems, or the dry that doesn't rain so much. But I think it's like a movement to change the course of the compass of the evolution of humanity. You don't change in one day. It takes time. So it's a mix of being proactive sometimes we have to work to react in advance to things happening, but many times we are reactive. We are not so proactive, we are reactive. So we just have to face the wall, just to think how we jump and solve that problem. Well, I think now the society and the model of companies are changing. Just a few years ago, we only look for a benefit, but now people and the society demands companies that make a positive impact. So it's not so easy to survive in a market where a company don't make a positive impact for people or for the planet. So it's a mix of being proactive and also companies, they start realizing that they have to change things. The insurance companies, they know very well. They don't, now all the businesses in the Mediterranean coast, they know that it will cost money for them. Global change is real. It's not an illusion. So, yeah, you know, stakeholders and, well, BlackRock and all these big, they are putting now money into the sustainability and alternative energies. So it's not because it's an opinion or a fake, it's a real, and we have to move.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nacho. I saw there was one more question in the audience I want to get to. I know we're almost at time.
First of all, thanks a lot for the talk. And I think science and engineers discover and design the materials which the industry and the companies work with to change the world. Do you think there is enough research now to find better materials that are friendly with nature?
Excellent question.
I don't care.
I think there is scientific research, but one thing is to discover a new material, and a different one is to implement. Yeah. There are a lot of problems. There are alternatives to petrol and to fossil fuels, but the industry has a lot of, sometimes it's not easy for a little startup, or, you know, also with alternative materials to plastic, like from biodegradable products. But it's not so easy to go into the market in a massive way, because there are a lot of problems. And so I think that's when law and governments and authorities should support those changes, because economy and politics go by hand. So if you want to change things, the both of them has to change.
Yeah, options. I think there are alternatives, obviously, and I agree with Nacho. There are obviously alternatives for petrol or for plastic, but I think one of the huge problems nowadays is the economic interest, because big companies that produce massively have a bigger focus, and people just consume from them, and the tiny companies, the tiny startups that are trying to do things better and are trying to come up with alternatives that are not so pollutant, are to the side and are in the shadows, and governments and politicians, they should also regard these, and also citizens. We have also the power to say from where and what we consume. If we choose to consume locally, for example, or if we choose to buy things from a tiny startup instead of like the big companies that produce massively with child labor and all the other problems that they have, we are showing the government what we want and what transitions do they need to make towards a more sustainable future.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. Great questions, everyone. Thank you for your engagement. Thank you, Nacho and Olivia, for your leadership and commitment. I think you've really demonstrated today that real lasting change requires intergenerational dialogue and conversation, public-private partnerships, educating ourselves, but also working together to have that long-term vision while also making concrete, actionable steps every day. So thank you, everyone, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.